Welcome to another Sensual review, and today we'll be checking out Tower of Fantasy. In all honesty, when a game as big and popular as Genshin Impact comes along into the market, it's only a matter of time before it begins to drop an influence on the gaming industry as a whole. A lot of MMORPGs of the same anime art style have been popping out recently, and in my opinion, that's not a problem at all. A brand new game called Tower of Fantasy has obviously established its foundation with Genshin Impact's blueprints in mind. Much as Genshin Impact borrowed lines from Breath of the Wild, however, when you compare it to Genshin Impact, Tower of Fantasy is a very distinct animal. It's got several unusual additions and modifications to mix up the formula, yet it is a worthy competitor in every way to its predecessors. Tower of Fantasy isn't a brand new game. In fact, it was first released in China late last year and has only just gained traction in the West. On paper, it has become a phenomenally popular game, just like Genshin Impact managed to become. It adds elements to Genshin's phenomenal design such as mounts, while emphasizing MMO components like PvP to make it more engaging. However, to be honest, none of those major gameplay additions ever came in to make this game more interesting or exciting. In Tower of Fantasy, players control the Wanderer, an intrepid traveler who is separated from their twin at the start of the game. And in search of their long-lost sibling, the Wanderer arrives on the planet Ada. You can tell even the story is very heavily inspired by Genshin Impact. Soon, the world of Ada is in a post-apocalyptic state. Humans have somehow gotten to the verge of extinction due to the virtually catastrophic effects of their exploitation of the resource Omnium. So, the remaining humans have divided themselves amongst factions, and now on Ada, they argue about whether or not to use Omnium. While some see it as necessary for their survival, others see it as nothing but pure evil. Just prior to the catastrophe, the Wanderer befriends the brothers Zeke and Shirley, and the players delves into the politics of Ada's rival factions. A city-spanning adventure where you wander around the large planet in search for any ideas that might lead you closer to your destiny. The world in Tower of Fantasy is vast, it's wild, and it is incredibly chaotic to its core. The gameplay takes place in a vividly futuristic and yet post-apocalyptic world where flying machines, robots, jetpacks, and monsters are found in almost every direction you look. Just like in many RPGs, you play the part of an Amnesiac wanderer, so your journey starts in a tiny town that supports you as you adjust to your surroundings. It's also where you learn most of the game's systems and become well versed in some of the lore. You are thrown right into the stunning world of Isperia. You find yourself surrounded by friendly and some more hostile characters. Soon you are the talk of the town and are drawn into a number of major battles, conflicts, and quests. Danger lurks all over the game world, primarily because of an outbreak of Omnium. You see, Omnium causes people, animals, and plants to gradually transform into powerful, dangerous, and wild forces of nature unless they have an active suppressor equipped or placed on them. I would take Omnium if you ask me. The world in Tower of Fantasy is meant to heighten the senses of danger, peril, and create a sense of emergence within the player. It works greatly to that effect. Now let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. Tower of Fantasy's combat showcases the actual grit and labor of love that this game was for its developers. Players are given access to 3 different sorts of weapons, and each of these weapons will contain one of the 4 components that can be used to defeat foes who are vulnerable to a specific element. Players can switch weapons to perform a special move once a weapon has accumulated enough charge during combat. Moreover, Tower of Fantasy has an awesome slow motion system. This slow motion activates after a flawless dodge, and it works well with the game's other visual effects to create an actual blockbuster looking action game. It plays well and it looks great, but the problem here is that the game's primary combat loop ultimately comes out as being somewhat mindless and repetitive. The biggest drawback in the case of Tower of Fantasy's combat is the weak and dull enemies, with easily scannable attack patterns. Every single low-level enemy that I faced here would remain stunned after one hit, and they could easily get destroyed by simply spamming the attack button. Sometimes though, the enemies would recover, and yet it didn't feel like much of a threat, even when there was a large mob against you. The dodge window is very easy to master, and the game is customarily designed to be quite easier in general. which it may not be a bad thing, to be honest, depending on what you like and enjoy in a video game. In Genshin Impact, you had to swap between characters while devising a plan of attack against your foes. The idea of strategy and character choice had a general impact on the conflict. In this case, Tower of Fantasy just requires you to switch between 3 weapons in the hopes that you have loaded the right element on your loadout. Otherwise, you'd be beating a dead horse in your opponents. I wasn't a fan of the story presentation though, because the majority of the cutscenes in Tower of Fantasy are made up of a sporadic voice acting and clumsy animations. The voice actors are only half of the game's characters, seem to be giving their best while the rest just sit back and do things without passion. There's also a ton of time gating and level gating to the quest, chests, and story here, so that's always a bit disappointing, to be honest. Thankfully, the exploration is more fun than the story presentation here. It's a beautifully designed game world, and totally worth exploring due to a few things. Your jetpack, and more importantly, your bike, can be quickly pulled out at the touch of a button. There are other vehicle options also available in this game, but your bike is unlocked in your first travel to Hikros. Moreover, the stamina usage, which is similar to Genshin Impact, also allows you to climb almost all surfaces in the game. Not to mention, you have a hoverboard to traverse over water as well. And now for the verdict. In essence, Tower of Fantasy seems to be a game that's just started out on its gacha journey. It was genuinely enjoyable to experience combat for the first few hours in this game. I had a lot of fun at the beginning, to be honest, and the character creator was by far one of the most unique and lovable aspects. However, the story presentation was nothing short of disappointing, combined with the level gating and time gating that it brings to almost all elements. It halted my progress quite extensively. The key thing that kept me going here was the beautiful, expansive open world and the phenomenal combat system, which did get repetitive, but if you just keep switching your gear, then it keeps staying fun until you've dried everything out. Tower of Fantasy has a lot of potential to be one of the better gacha games out there, but so far, it's not living up to the hype, to be honest. Of course, games as a service don't usually start off at the right foot with most players, nowadays at least, and I do believe that with some time, Hayata Studios will manage to turn Tower of Fantasy into one of the better MMORPGs out there, with a bit less focus on its gacha and a bit more focus on the MMO aspects. As always, we truly hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider supporting a small content creator who's currently trying to make their way through the YouTube vicious algorithm. So please drop a like and subscribe if you liked the video, and drop some comments down below on what you think of this game. I think the game has a lot of potential. It is fun, but there is some work that needs to be done. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. We love you.